The Roman Empire, a civilization that once stretched from the windswept moors of Britain to the sun-drenched sands of Egypt. For centuries it stood as a beacon of power, a symbol of human ingenuity and military prowess. Its legions were unstoppable, its emperors worshipped as gods, and its culture influential beyond measure. Yet, this mighty empire crumbled, leaving behind ruins and questions that have puzzled historians for generations. How could such a dominant force fall? What were the cracks in its seemingly impregnable armor? The answer, as with most historical mysteries, is complex, a tapestry woven from various threads, each contributing to the empire's decline. While many factors contributed, three standout plagues, slavery, and climate change. These elements, though seemingly disparate, acted in concert to weaken the empire. Plagues decimated the population, reducing the workforce and weakening the military. Slavery created economic stagnation, as innovation was stifled by reliance on forced labor. Climate change altered agricultural patterns, leading to food shortages and social unrest. These seemingly disparate elements, acting in concert, chipped away at Rome's foundations, ultimately leading to its demise. The story of Rome's fall is a cautionary tale, reminding us that even the mightiest empires are not invincible to the forces of nature and the consequences of their own actions. It serves as a stark reminder that the balance of power is delicate, and the factors that contribute to the rise of a civilization can also lead to its downfall. Disease, a silent and invisible enemy, has reshaped human history countless times. It strikes without warning, leaving societies in turmoil and altering the course of civilizations. Rome was no stranger to epidemics. The Eternal City, with its bustling streets and crowded marketplaces, was a fertile ground for the spread of disease. From the early days of the Republic to the twilight of the Empire, plagues ravaged the Italian peninsula. These outbreaks were not mere footnotes in history, they were pivotal events that shaped the destiny of Rome. These outbreaks, often arriving via trade routes from distant lands, brought with them not just death, but fear, disruption, and economic instability. The interconnectedness of the Roman Empire, which was its greatest strength, also became its greatest vulnerability. One of the earliest recorded plagues struck Rome in the 5th century BC, decimating the population and weakening the city. This early encounter with disease left a lasting scar on the collective memory of the Romans. Centuries later, during the Punic Wars against Carthage, another wave of disease swept through Roman legions, hindering their campaigns. The soldiers, already weary from battle, found themselves fighting an invisible enemy that knew no boundaries. These plagues, though devastating, were but a prelude to the cataclysm that awaited Rome in the 2nd century AD. The Antonine Plague, which struck in 165 AD, was one of the deadliest pandemics of the ancient world. It decimated the population, killing an estimated 5 million people, and left the empire reeling. The social and economic fabric of Rome was torn apart, and the once mighty legions were left weakened and demoralized. The plagues of Rome serve as a stark reminder of the fragility of human societies in the face of nature's wrath. The year was 165 AD. It was a time of great prosperity and power for the Roman Empire, a civilization that had expanded its reach across vast territories, bringing with it advancements in culture, technology, and governance. The Roman Empire, under the rule of Marcus Aurelius, stood at the zenith of its power. Marcus Aurelius, known as the Philosopher King, was a ruler who sought wisdom and justice, guiding the empire through both philosophical insight and military prowess. Yet a storm was brewing in the east. Unbeknownst to the Romans, their greatest challenge was not from an external enemy, but from an invisible foe that would test the very fabric of their society. Returning legions, victorious from campaigns in Mesopotamia, unknowingly carried a deadly stowaway, the Antonine Plague, likely smallpox or measles. These soldiers, hailed as heroes, brought with them a silent killer that would soon spread like wildfire. This plague, unlike any before, ripped through the empire with terrifying speed. It did not discriminate, affecting the young and old, the rich and poor, the soldier and the civilian alike. The symptoms were gruesome, and the death toll rose rapidly. Cities became charnel houses, the dead overwhelming burial grounds. The sheer number of casualties was staggering, and traditional burial practices could not keep pace with the mounting bodies. Mass graves became a common sight. Estimates suggest the Antonine Plague killed millions, perhaps as much as 10% of the empire's population. The impact was profound. Entire communities were decimated, and the social structure of the empire was shaken to its core. The economy sputtered as trade dwindled, and agricultural production plummeted due to a lack of laborers. Markets that once bustled with activity became eerily quiet, and fields lay fallow as there were not enough hands to tend to the crops. The military, its ranks depleted, struggled to contain unrest and defend the empire's vast borders. With fewer soldiers to call upon, the once formidable Roman legions found themselves stretched thin, facing both internal revolts and external threats. The Antonine Plague marked a turning point, exposing the fragility of Roman might and setting the stage for further decline. It was a stark reminder that even the greatest of empires could be brought low by forces beyond their control, altering the course of history forever. Slavery, a cornerstone of Roman society, was both a source of wealth and a simmering cauldron of instability. Conquered peoples fueled the empire's insatiable appetite for labor, working in mines, fields, and households. This reliance on slave labor, while initially profitable, ultimately proved detrimental to Rome's long-term health. The abundance of slaves disincentivized technological innovation. With a large, unpaid workforce at their disposal, the Roman elite saw little need for labor-saving devices or techniques. This stagnation in technological advancement left Rome vulnerable to more advanced civilizations in the later centuries. Section 5. Depletion of the workforce, how slavery backfired. As Roman expansion slowed and eventually halted, the influx of new slaves dwindled. This led to a decline in the overall slave population and consequently, a shortage of labor. With fewer hands to work the fields and mines, agricultural production and resource extraction suffered. Furthermore, the brutal treatment of slaves fostered resentment and rebellion. Uprisings such as the famous slave revolt led by Spartacus in the 1st century BC, though ultimately crushed, were a constant drain on Roman resources and a testament to the inherent instability of a slave-based economy. Section 6. The climate conspiracy, a cold wind blows. While plagues and slavery ravaged Rome from within, a more subtle threat emerged from the north: climate change. Around the 3rd century AD, Europe entered a period of colder and wetter weather, marking the onset of the late antique Little Ice Age. This shift in climate, though seemingly slight, had profound consequences for Roman agriculture. Shorter growing seasons, increased rainfall, and colder temperatures led to crop failures and widespread famine. The once fertile fields of North Africa, which had supplied Rome with grain, became less productive, further straining the empire's ability to feed its population. Section 7. Famine and instability. The consequences of cold. Famine, a constant companion of climate change, stalked the Roman Empire. The lack of food led to malnutrition, weakened immune systems, and increased susceptibility to disease. Social unrest, fueled by hunger and desperation, became commonplace. The Roman government, already struggling with the economic and military consequences of plagues and slavery, found itself ill-equipped to deal with the added burden of climate change. The once mighty empire, weakened and vulnerable, was ripe for the picking. Section 8. A perfect storm, the confluence of catastrophes. The fall of Rome was not the result of a single catastrophic event, but rather a confluence of interconnected factors. Plagues like the Antonine Plague decimated the population, weakened the economy, and strained the military. Slavery, while initially beneficial, ultimately stifled innovation and created a system ripe for rebellion. Climate change, in the form of the late antique Little Ice Age, dealt a final blow, causing widespread famine and social unrest. These three factors, acting in concert, created a perfect storm that the Roman Empire, weakened and vulnerable, could not withstand. Section 9. Conclusion: The Fall of Rome, a lesson for the ages. The fall of the Roman Empire stands as a stark reminder that even the most powerful civilizations are not immune to the forces of history. Plagues, slavery, and climate change, acting in unison, chipped away at Rome's foundations, ultimately leading to its collapse. The story of Rome is a cautionary tale, urging us to learn from the past and address the challenges facing our own world. By understanding the factors that contributed to Rome's demise, we can hopefully avoid repeating the mistakes of the past and build a more resilient and sustainable future.